hold music. You want to avoid it, and so do your customers. So say goodbye to hold music and hello to faster, smarter support with Salesforce. Make service more personal and agents more productive using built-in trusted AI. Then watch costs and wait times drop and satisfaction soar. Support customers in a whole new way with Service GPT. Learn how at salesforce.com/servicegpt.
Welcome to Nature Backed Podcast, where we are talking with investors about their vision of the new green world. My name is Tarmo Virki, and in this episode I'm talking with Maria de Perlinghi from Norselab, a Norwegian investment firm.
Hey there! I hope you're enjoying the Nature Backed podcast. I'm Merit, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Single Earth, and we're a team of more than 70 people building a nature-backed economy. And if that sounds crazy enough for you, then join us. Sign up at single.earth to be among the first to get access to our nature-backed tokens. And let's talk more on our Earth Savers Discord channel. Enjoy the show.
Hello, Maria. Welcome to the Nature Backed.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here.
Tell us a few words about Norselab. What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Norselab has kind of an interesting heritage. We're now what we call an impact investment platform focusing on the Nordics. But originally we were actually a venture studio. So we were really specialists in building companies from scratch and co-founding with other smart people around what we call meaningful companies. So it would be typically companies that would do some kind of good in the world. And we had a really good portfolio with companies that were starting to get product market fit, starting to enter the growth phase and so on. And 2019, 2020, we saw that there was a real big gap in the Nordics between, the startup community, seed community, where there was a lot of activity. It was really thriving. And then I would say the more large scale VC, PE, and buyout community, where there was also a lot of activity. But I would say in between, so between seed and Series A, there was pretty much no one to, take on those companies, bring the capital, bring the competence, and, take them to the international scene. So that's the point where we decided to establish Norselab as you know it today. So we're now an internationally regulated fund platform. And as we started out, we established our first venture fund, which was actually the largest first-time venture fund founded out of Norway. So that was back in 2020. We were very fast at investing into that fund. We had amazing deal flow, as we anticipated with the funding gap that was for growth companies. And we've already launched our second venture fund. Where we are already invested into one company and we're still fundraising. But what's more exciting is that at Norselab, we have the ambition to prove that impact is the future of investments, no matter the asset class. So we've started in venture. It was kind of our comfort zone in some way because it was very close to what we knew how to do. But now we're very rapidly expanding into other asset classes. So we're actually launching this in Q4. We're launching a high yield fund. So we're going into the credit space. And we'll also launch a structured equity fund I don't think it's so known here in the Nordics. It's more known in the US and beyond. But it will be a fund that looks more like the venture funds. So still more in the known asset class for us. But you can expect us also to move into other asset classes going forward. And, we're set up to scale fast. We've invested a lot in building our platform, which is basically based on 3 core pillars. So you would have the state-of-the-art governance that we built thanks to our CEO Erik, who joined and who came from the hedge fund world. And that is kind of our governance guru, I tend to call him. And that really built us a rig that is scalable and that is designed to attract international investors. And then the second aspect, which I am heading up, which is impact or meaningfulness, as we call it at Norselab, where that is our philosophy and our approach to impact that is overarching all the investment strategies that we have in the various funds. And then, of course, it's the third aspect, which has to do with the fact that we are also here to create returns. So we build investment teams that are specialists in their field to deliver solid returns to investors across the funds that we have. So I would say that's the short introduction to our history and who Norselab is. But we're on a very exciting scaling journey right now.
You're kind of heading the impact or the meaningfulness part. Tell us a few words. What's impact for you?
So we have our own take on, how we can create the best possible impact, and I'll get back to that. But I would say when we talk about impact, people tend to say it's about doing good for people on planet. We tend to, from a structural viewpoint, we'll always look to the SDGs, so the UN Sustainable Development Goals, which for us is the roadmap to a sustainable future, which is the definition of how we as investors can contribute to that future that we need. So that's kind of in terms of defining what's good in terms of impact. But when we think of how we can best contribute, we have built an approach that's based on three principles that we apply on all our funds. And the first principle is that we always look for what we call product-driven impact. So we will not focus so much on how a company is run or, the operations of a company, which would be more typical for the ESG approach. We will really look at the core products of the company, the way the company makes money, and whether that can contribute to one of the Sustainable Development Goals. And then there is a second aspect which is really important to us. It's the notion of net impact. So it's really recognizing that all companies have both positive and negative effects. And it doesn't mean that it's necessarily bad that you have a negative effect or that you have a cost for the environment. We know that food production, for instance, will always have a cost to the planet, right? But it's more an awareness thing where we really like to see what a company looks like. Are they doing more good than bad, than harm, basically? And of course, if a company does significant harm, it will be out of our scope.
Logical.
And then there's the third, I would say the third aspect of our philosophy, if I might call it that, is that we like to go into resource intensive industries. So, we've seen a wave of a lot of, consumer tech that is kind of focused on impact. We believe that the next frontier or really the code that we have to crack now is in the major global industries where we know that there are huge challenges. And, those are industries that we cannot live without. We need food. We need, shelter. We need buildings. We need to transport stuff. We need to transport people. And, we're not at all shy of going into those industries and supporting companies that contribute to transforming those industries. So those are three very central aspects to how we think on impact.
The interesting list of companies you mentioned, the food, construction, transport. But in those kind of resource intensive sectors, you would be still investing in technology startups, or are you having a wider scope that, if somebody wants to build a new farm, is that a case also for you guys?
No, so with our venture funds, we're of course looking for companies with venture growth potential. So it would have to be a very scalable business model. But what we see now is that some of the most interesting cases, they have some kind of combination of software and hardware. So of course, not right now, with everything that's going on in the world, there is a high focus on energy, for instance. And with our first venture fund, we invested into a company called Antec. And it's a company that produces clean energy, so gas, and biofertilizer on the basis of any kind of bio waste. So it can be food waste, it can be sludge, it can be wastewater, all of those kinds of bio waste that are actually an environmental problem in themselves. That you can use as input, and then you have this technology that they have built that is hugely more efficient than any of the existing biogas technologies, where you basically put it into the digester and you will start having energy and biofertilizer production within 5 to 7 days. And it's also very modular, and it's very scalable model. So basically it fits on a truck. So one of the digesters fits on a truck, and you can have as many as you want, as few as you want. So this means that you can have distribution of this energy production. So you can have local communities, or you can have industries that would have this kind of solution locally. So using the bio waste that they have in the community. So as long as we have people, we have the kind of waste we need to put into the digesters. And then you could use the energy that comes out and the biofertilizer that comes out directly in the community. So it's for energy security, of course, which is high on the agenda right now. But also, of course, it's a beautiful, we say in Norway, a kinder egg. It's a company that really solves many challenges in one go. And they're actually heading now into a large international round. We're expecting to raise 50 million euro plus for that company. So very, very successful. But I think it's of course, it's a case where you have a very, very interesting piece of technology, but also where it's something that happens in the real physical world, right? It's not just software.
Exactly. And also they have the kind of headwinds from the geopolitics to support the case just now.
Yeah. But also, we could, there are very interesting software cases as well that are very complementary. So if you look to the energy space, we also have a company that specifically targets buildings and building owners with a software that allows building owners to get a good overview of the total environmental footprint of their buildings. So this means that they will collect all the data sources from the beginning of the construction project to understand the embodied carbon of a building, and then also connect with all the data sources that says something about the environmental footprint in the operations of the building. And this piece of software gives a super good overview of what's driving your environmental footprint in the building. And as you know, buildings, we say that they're 40% of the resource use and 40% of the pollution, right, in the world. So it's a huge chunk of potential impact there. And this kind of software companies, you are actually enabling people to do something about buildings, even though it's a software. But we see that the buildings that implement this, they reduce water use, they reduce energy use, they reduce food waste in the canteens and so on. So of course, at scale, this is the kind of company that it can also have massive impact, and that I would say also plays on the other spectrum of what we need to solve the energy crisis. Because on one hand, we need more clean energy. On the other hand, we also need greater efficiency, so energy efficiency, so reduce and clean up. So we really look at these sustainability challenges from the various angles that we can attack them, and with various types of companies.
You said that in 2020 you were the largest VC fund in Norway. How big is the largest?
Oh, actually, I don't know, because if you look at first time funds, I know that we were the biggest. So we were 70 million euro.
Okay.
But of course, people with a track record that have fund 2, fund 3, fund 4, and so on, they might be larger.
Yeah, of course.
Sure.
The other thing I wanted to ask you is most of our listeners are in the United States, and I think the perception is that coming from Norway, you have the massive oil money and the massive oil industry, and the energy sector should be, thriving. What's the kind of perspective from Norway looking at the European energy crisis?
Yeah, so Norway has for decades already been kind of the reliable energy provider to Europe. So we're providing a lot of the natural gas that they use in Germany, in France, and so on. And I think Norway is probably a country that's easier to collaborate with, right, than a lot of the other energy producers. So we have that heritage with us. But Norway, of course, we're a large oil and gas producing country. We still are. However, we're also one of the leaders on renewables. So we've been producing hydropower, and I think we're among the top 3 in Europe in hydropower production. So this means that we have a lot of competence around the energy space, and we're super well positioned to both use the technologies that we have developed within these industries, use them to create new energy sources. We have a lot of engineering competence that we can use. And what we actually see now is that people don't want to work with oil and gas anymore. They want to do something meaningful. We see it, with the people that we attract to our companies and also to Norselab, that people want to get out of those industries. And those are the smartest minds that have been kind of caught up in those industries, tied up in those industries for decades, but it's not cool to work there anymore. People want to make a positive change, and now they will take their competence and they will start building the companies of the future. So that's really a trend that we're seeing now. So I'd say, with all the competence that we have in Norway, also the industrial heritage with a lot of, we have subsea technology that we are now using, for instance, to create better methods for catching species on the seafloor. Let me just give you that example. I think it's a pretty cool one. You're using a subsea technology that comes out of the oil and gas sector, and you've adapted that now to a device that you can bring close to the seafloor and actually pick up seashells. So this is scallops that this company has started with. You can pick up seashells from the seafloor without destroying the seafloor. Because what's going on today is that most of those species are being scraped off the seafloor with all the right? It's ugly.
Yes.
It's even astonishing that it's still allowed. In Norway, it's been forbidden for 30 years. So we haven't been able to harvest of those species. And now this company is called Ava Ocean. They have actually come in a position to reopen those fisheries thanks to that new technology. So I think this is just an example of how one technology that kind of is in our legacy can be used for creating the companies of tomorrow. And I think that's really where we stand now.
So basically, knowledge transfer, the talent and the technology transfer, and the third thing you didn't mention, coming from the kind of investment platform, capital transfer too, right? The capital which has been kind of accumulating with the oil industry has been over the last decades quite heavily also invested in the new technologies.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looking forward in the 2022, fall of 2022, what are the next kind of big things for Norselab? Launching those 2 new funds, or?
Yeah, of course, for us, we're working on many fronts, but for us, it's really exciting now to move into new asset class with the high yield fund, which is I would say it's a completely different way of working compared to the venture funds. And it's a challenge, of course, to adapt our impact lens, our meaningfulness lens to that kind of universe where, on the venture funds, we have a lot of time to do the assessments and we can go very deep and so on. And we're used to having the luxury to do that. And so in high yield, when you're in a situation where you have much higher volumes in investments, how do you do that? What is a system you can create to still say, yes, I can assure you we're doing impact and it's well documented. But I'm working with my excellent team. We're working on this right now to settle on it, and we have found a solution to actually do it with a very high degree of thoroughness still. Actually, the way we've done it is that we use a very, I would say, practical or pragmatic approach where we first look at the companies or the issuers in the universe where we know that they're doing good. So we start with the easy ones that we know are very, very, very clearly driving a positive impact, and we're signing them off for the high yield team to invest in. And then for the companies that might be a little bit more in the gray zone, we're digging actually as deep as we are doing in the venture funds. So we are actually aiming for an Article 9 with the EU, the SFDR, the EU regulation to classify funds. So we're very, very excited, and we haven't seen in the Nordics, at least, any impact high yield funds yet.
I think the concept. The concept is a little bit like oxymoron, right? Mentally, at least, if you think of the high yield credit, you think people in trouble lending money or borrowing money for 20% or 30% or 40% rates. And then you try to put impact investing into that. You kind of think, what the hell is going on?
Absolutely. And I think that's why we like working with these things as well, right? If it was easy, anyone could do it. But we really like the fact that it's a hard thing to do. But this is also the choice that we've made at Norselab to be industry leading on impact, and we've invested in a really, really good team. And this allows us to do it. But you have to have the right people, and you need to invest time and resources into it if you want to claim that you're doing impact. For any kind of fund, but particularly when you're doing something hard like impact in high yield, you need to invest, resources, people. So that's what we've done. It's the choice we've made. And I think that's also, if I may say, unique is a big word. But I think at least what's different with us is that, you have a lot of investment managers that have a variety of different funds in different asset classes, but we haven't seen anyone yet that have kind of drawn not the red thread but the green thread throughout, and managed to do impact across all initiatives, which is what we're striving to do.
Sounds like a beautiful challenge to take up.
Absolutely.
In your talk, you mentioned in passing ESG. What's your take on ESG?
Yeah, so where to start? With all the ESG ranting that we have had this autumn, there are 1,000 things that you could look at, but I think ESG in some form will, of course, continue to exist. It makes sense to look at ESG when you're looking at large companies. Then the operational side, which is what ESG focuses on, makes more sense to look at. But when you want to support and build the companies of tomorrow, it might be a company of 20 employees. It doesn't make sense to look at how the company is run and whether that is done in an environmentally friendly way. What it makes sense to look at is, are they building a business that is good for our world? And that is the reason why we are so strict on wanting only to invest in companies that have a product-driven impact. So it means that if we want to build the companies of tomorrow, we have to focus on the product. And that you'll see throughout, even in high yield, we're basing our assessments on the products that the companies have to offer. We're not basing it on ESG. Because the ESG data, for once, there is the problem with the great difference in the ratings, right? And you have different methodologies, different data inputs, and you have have a wide range of scores depending on who is doing the scoring. So for us, it's that is one problem that is a part, but I think the core problem is what ESG focuses on. And I know some investment managers are trying to use ESG for impact, and there might be ESG factors that are relevant to impact, but it's not the core of it. You have to focus on the product. If you have a product that's bad for people to eat, it doesn't matter that the company is good at reducing their CO2 emissions when they travel. It makes no sense at all.
I
Same,
agree.
of course, a lot of the oil and gas companies here in Norway, of course, they're well run, but they have a product that is intrinsically bad for the environment. So it makes no sense to disregard the product and look only at ESG and say that you're doing well. And I think also what kind of disappears in this whole ESG debate is the difference in angle between ESG and impact, because many tend to put everything in the same bucket, right? But ESG has been designed to look at sustainability related factors that impact a company financially. So it's about the financial performance of the company. So to me, it's more the risk aspect. It's on the commercial side, on the credit side, then it's very relevant to look at ESG. But if you look at impact and you say you want to do good for the world, then it's about how is my company and my products, how are they impacting our world? So this is an inside-out perspective, whereas ESG is the other way around.
But for the inside-out perspective, what kind of metrics you use? How do you actually measure it?
Yeah. So we have a very clear thought on the fact that there is no answer with two lines underneath.
I kind of thought so. Yes, sorry.
So we apply what we call a multi-lens approach. So we will never rely on a single metric or a single data provider. But we have basically 4, and we could say 5 steps. I'll take you through them that we look at for all of our companies currently. And we're actually working also on adding more lenses. But for now we have 5. So the first one will be the fundamental research that we do on our team. So we dive into the science of an industry and the science of the change that the company is trying to bring about. And we articulate also in a narrated and heavily documented way what the challenge is that the company is addressing, how is the company driving the change. I think, so Kenza, who's the one on my team that is really diving into research here, she often has like a 25, 30 pages document that she will boil down to these two items. So that's the first thing that we do. The second thing that we do once we have that understanding of the case is the mapping to the to the SDGs at target level. Target level, really important because a lot of people just look at the headlines of the SDGs. They don't look at what they actually contain, which can very easily lead to rainbow washing. And then we also look at the indicators that are in the SDGs. So those are the metrics that they use to measure progress. And we suggest a KPI that the company should use to measure their progress as well. And then we have the third lens, which is the net impact lens. So that is a modeling of the company's positive and negative impacts throughout the value chain. So it's both upstream and downstream. And we're working with a Finnish data provider called the Upright Project. So a big shout out to them. They're great people. We're working with them on providing that data. They've created a very, very cool piece of technology that is based on a product taxonomy, and where their technology is connected to the world's largest science database and understands the causality between a product and certain effects. So they would explain this better than me, but basically you will get the shape of a company in terms of what are their impacts, positive and negative, on the environment, on society, on health, on knowledge. And you get a score that helps you understand how the company does. You know, what is the net impact? Does it do more good than bad? And you can also, of course, compare with industry peers to see to what extent the company is doing better than others in their line of work. And then the fourth lens that we use is the EU taxonomy. So we screen all our companies. It will not drive our decision alone, but it's very important that we have awareness of how our companies are doing in terms of the EU taxonomy. And then finally, looping back to what you actually asked about a few minutes back, we do some ESG assessments at the end. So that's when we're really into we do the deep dive in the impact DD. We select some of the metrics that you would recognize as ESG metrics, but we call it an operational assessment that we believe can be material to the company's potential to drive impact. So we do not have the financial angle to ESG. We have the impact angle. So it really means, for instance, one of the things that we can look at is what is the team's commitment to impact? Let's say you have a CEO that doesn't believe in climate change. Then you have a team commitment issue, right? How can you know that investing in a company like that, the company will commit to continue driving impact through their core products? So those are things that we can look at, but they are always relevant to the company's ability to drive impact.
Mm. I know some media house editors in chief who don't believe in climate change. I just don't see how one could see this as a, issue of religion, but it's a little bit crazy.
Yeah, it is. We agree.
Okay. We've gone through what you guys are doing. We talked about some of the great examples in your portfolio, talked a little bit about the industry and looking forward. Anything to wrap up the discussion or anything you want to definitely say to the listeners?
Well, I think that we should all, in terms of impact, we should all take a step back and stop looking so much at what the benchmark is in the industry. What is it that we need to do to be able to say that we're doing impact and, reap the benefits of being marketed as an impact investor? I think what everyone should try and do is take a step back and work on the integrity and actually look at, when we say that we do impact, what is the best possible way of ensuring that we're doing impact? Let's not look at what everyone else is doing, or we can look at it for awareness, but, if we could shape the impact space from scratch, how would we do it? Try to, what do you say? Tabula rasa, right? And try and clean it up and see, okay, with all the knowledge that we have about sustainability, how can we do this in the very best way so that we keep integrity and credibility throughout, and that all of us working here can say, we are an impact investor and we know it in our hearts that we really are. And then, of course, it's not enough to just know that you're trying to do good, but you also have to invest in the teams and the resources and the hours, because you have to document everything. It's really, we still see some of those Excel sheets, circulating. I won't mention any names, but where it's just a ticking, tick box exercise. We need to get away from that. And we need to, if we want to claim impact, we need to document and we need to work on it in a way more serious way than a lot of players are doing today.
Absolutely. I think that's a good point to wrap up. Thank you, Maria, for this discussion.
Thank you so much, Tarmo.
Thank you for joining us. We will be back next week. Turn on to Nature Back podcast.
Hey, I'm Ashley D., a media entrepreneur, mother of 3, and a woman of God. Through my podcast, Spiritually Restored, I discuss various topics about life, love, purpose, and healing, while bringing messages through the Word of God, prophetic dreams, and testimonies from myself and my guest hosts. Catch a new faith-filled message every Wednesday on the Voices of Faith podcast network through Electrocast. See you there.
Electrocast.
Wild 95 is the country station on Audilis, bringing you the hits from today's chart toppers, some new up-and-coming hits, and a handful of those country hits from the past. We bring you great on-air personalities on top of all of that great music. Download the Audilis app for the best of today's country music all day and all night. Come on over to audilis.com/wild95.
Electrocast.